What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to this edition of the David Rutherford Show. I'm here with my good friend, Jordy. Jordy, how's the baby doing, man? I want to know that.
Baby's crushing it, honestly. So she has a few tasks that she has to do every day, which is just sleep. She has to eat. She has to poop. And she just has to hang out. And she is 4 for 4 right now and just going through. You finish all 4, you just start back at 0. It's like the Golden Gate Bridge when you paint it. You know, you start at the beginning. Once you finish painting it, you just have to start over because it's been so long. It's just that. It's just a cycle. And she's doing great, man. Well,
I love the metaphor of the Golden Gate Bridge, right? It's the servitude. It's the upkeep on some grand vehicle to discovery on the other side, right? Ooh. And you have to make the journey not only aesthetically pleasing but functionally pleasing as well too. And that is what you do with children, man. That is what you do in terms of creating those bridges through until they get done with this initial cycle and then the next cycle. And then you add in a little bit of play in there. Then you add a little bit of learning, and then you add a little bit of socialization, right? And each one of those is a bridge to the next evolution of who they become as a person.
Does that mean she's the bridge and I'm the painter? I don't know who I am in this analogy, but something like that.
100%, right? No, she's the car on the bridge, right?
Okay.
The love that you and your wife give her is the bridge to her future self, right? But
and changing diapers is the paint. Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure we nailed that.
I love it. Well, in that reference, again, thank you all for showing up. If you really have been enjoying the show, we have been so blessed to have you part. If you love the show, please don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe to all the different places. We're on all the different platforms. Obviously, the show's on everywhere from TikTok to Instagram to X to YouTube. The video, we post video both on X and on YouTube. It's you can follow the show at D Rutherford Show on X. It's at D Rutherford Show. On the other platforms, it's at David Rutherford Show. YouTube, it's the David Rutherford Show. If you want to follow me, it's usually I'm on X and Instagram the most, and it's at Team Froglogic. One of the things that I wanted to just discuss, and it's kind of, relevant to the initial question of your newborn child is, what are the critical aspects that we need in this very difficult life? Because why sometimes on that bridge, there might be a toll booth or there might be the bridge out of order. And so what do we do and how do we reference that? And so, one of the key concepts behind this motivational concept that I've been in development for 30 plus years in all my background and all of the different things I've done in the military, intelligence, and working with professional and collegiate athletes and business people is to deliver these core concepts that really help people discover what inside themselves makes it possible, or what ignites the desire to want to drive over those bridges in life, right? Especially when some of those bridges, have you ever seen the glass walkway bridge in China?
Oh, dude, I'm not going on that, dude. No way. I'm not doing that. Absolutely not.
I mean, some people have some very substantial fears about crossing those different bridges, and from a literal concept, and then obviously from a metaphorical concept, because each chapter of your life, each segment of your life is connected through these different capacities within the human condition, within these different values or virtues or belief systems, right? That's what gives you the structure to move from one moment to the next in your life, and especially the big moments. And we see so many people dealing with big moments in their lives. And in fact, I bet if you're listening right now, there's a high probability that you're going through a big moment in your life. And for many people that are ambitious and want to kind of leave a mark in this grand highway of their existence, the higher ambition you have, the greater probability there's going to be immeasurable challenges, really things that can knock you down. And this is kind of actually the place where I began this journey, right? Because, in this period of my life, post high school and into college, I had really kind of lost that self-confidence that really we all need every day as we are going to confront our great ambition or aspire to our great ambition. And in that aspiration or inspiration, we're going to come in contact with that negative insurgency who's going to try and get us to quit or be afraid or to be paralyzed and slowing down our momentum. And for me, it was the biggest, most palpable aspect of that beyond the fear was the fact that I had lost all my self-confidence, and which was very peculiar for me because I really imagined myself as a pretty self-confident kid. I had, good childhood, rough in some ways, but I was confident in my abilities when tested, but obviously I didn't have the capacity as a young person, as many people don't, to have that grander idea of how difficult things are going to be. And, before we hopped on, Jordy and I were discussing this. I have 4 teenage daughters who are all in this place where their substantial nature of their identity is emerging. And so part of, our challenge, my wife and I, is to say, hey, it's hard now, but in the future, it's going to be a lot harder as your ambition grows. So do the challenges. So you're going to have to develop these types of skill sets in order to be able to combat the setbacks that you face, the knocking back or the chopping down or the collapse, if you will, to go back to that bridge analogy, the collapse of your self-confidence, which happens in some capacity almost every single day of your life.
That reminds me of a Simpsons episode. Homer, Bart goes to his dad and he's like, "This is the worst day of my life." And Homer tells him, "Oh, don't worry, son. It's the worst day of your life so far." And it's like, yeah, that's about right.
That's about right. That's it, right? And if you think you've got it figured out, just wait a week, right? That's I've had so many people, in particular my buds instructors, right? You finish some insanely brutal day in training and you're feeling good about yourself, and that one instructor always just says, "Well, guess what, Rutherford? You had a good day today, but I'm going to knock the piss out of you tomorrow," right? And you're just like, what? What did I do wrong? And, for me, that's the place where I really began to reshape this foundation, or not really even a foundation, but this structure of self-confidence and how it's formed and how it's built and how it emerges. And so, when I had hit a point where I discovered that, maybe carrying a gun for a living I wasn't going to be able to really effectuate the most change in people by the end of a barrel of a gun. Now, don't get me wrong. I really believe that, that type of service has a huge impact on self-confidence and has a huge impact on meaning and purpose. But at the end of the day, right, if all you do is use a gun, there's a correlation between a particular negative outcome that's very intense on any pretty much all pieces within the human condition, and it does have long-term effects and effects to people. And so, what I realized in my kind of going into my 3rd year with Blackwater was that, man, there's got to be something more. And it really transpired in my trip. I did a fall deployment over to Afghanistan where I was training counter-drug commandos and mentoring them on missions. And then I was running a side building project for the Afghan border police. And it was during this experience that I had gone out, we did this, mentored this op, we hit this compound, and if you're not familiar, you're going to any compound or place in a 3rd world country, one of the things you'll notice, in particular in Afghanistan, is there's there's a trove of children. There's kids everywhere, right? Because they have a high reproductive rate, right? Because why? Because more kids help you work the fields, just like old school Americans, those old families of the late 1880s that would have 15 kids, or even into the early 1900s. My wife has a massive family that she comes from in terms of cousins and siblings and the whole thing. And so I remember hitting this compound, and I'm looking around, and there was nobody there. It was not kinetic in any way, shape, or form. It was very docile. But we're sitting there, and as we split up, the male adults and the females and the kids over here, it kind of hit me, and I got hit with one of those kind of God moments, like tapping me on my forehead, like, "Hey, Rut, wake up," and that's what I hope, sometimes my voice does with you when you're in your car or when you're working out, is that what you feel for me is me tapping your head like, "Hey, wake up. I'm trying to tell you something." Well, what God was trying to tell me in that moment was the real critical importance of our children, and how important that if we can somehow teach children to think outside of the typical cultural power structures that exist, in order to be able to reassess or restructure their perception of how you gain power, right? Whether through your fist or through manipulation or whatever Machiavellian influence that you're available to, right? And so easily we can, in particular as young people in our early teens, right, where things are very influential to us. And I realized in that moment, man, that might give me more fulfillment in my life. And, that was, I was in not a great place. And I really wanted to do something more meaningful. And so it was kind of in that moment that I was like, "Oh, wow, I want to go, help kids." And I know that's weird. Here's this team guy, military contractor, Blackwater mercenary, whatever you want to call me, and now all of a sudden I want to go help children. And I know the juxtaposition of that is definitely complex, but pretty
You're
typical.
Just looking for the root of the problem. You're
right.
trying to go to the root.
That's right. Because I had seen the atrocities of what men can do to each other when they are funneled into the proverbial system of the natural order of men wanting to conquer one another, right? I mean, there's no shortage of examples. In particular, you just looked at the 20th century. Low estimates, it's 150 million people annihilated. High, it could be 350. I mean, we just can't tell in some cases. I mean, the mass carnage that ensued was there's no word that can actually really describe it. And so what happened as a result of all that carnage, right? What did the generations that lived through that as children, what happened in their minds? What emerged out of that? And I saw this replicating itself in the current state of what the GWAT was. We go in there, we bomb these villages, or we kill these, terrorists in quotations, if you will, or bad people or HVTs or whatever, what happens to their children? And I certainly would hope that in some capacity, if I was to be brutally murdered or killed, that my children would be inspired by that in some capacity, hopefully for good. But, there's always a probability that human beings want to seek revenge or retribution for being wronged in some capacity. And I saw that and I was like, well, is there a way to impede that or to redirect that anger towards something more positive? And, I remember that fall of 2005, I remember I told my buddy, I was working with Joe, and Joe's just a real amazing guy. I had gone through training with him. We were partners in Blackwater, everything we did. And I said, hey man, I think I want to work with kids. And he's like, what? Cause I had a definite reputation of not being very, child friendly in my behavior, if you will. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe try and, figure out how to teach him how to be stronger or give him hope, or I don't know. And I was working on the idea, and then I came up with like, well, maybe I'll just, I'll teach him some of what we learned in training. And he's like, you're going to teach him how to like make bombs and blow stuff up and shoot people? And I was like, no. Come on, man. I was like to look at the lessons that we learned in this really unbelievable training program. I know I changed as a result for the better. I know you changed. I watched you change, and it's this growth that comes out of you. Maybe I can take whatever that is, and what is it? Maybe it's just what we were exposed to shaped our self-confidence and made that stronger. And I think that's what I wanted to try and do. And I was like, I was like, what, and I think I'm going to call it, because I have so much respect. If you really want to go down a fun rabbit hole, go do some research on our early predecessors, the Naval Combat Demolition Units that were the guys that led the D-Day invasion, that cut the lanes so the landing craft could land, and then get into the underwater demolition teams of the Pacific Theater. And their operations, they were in every major beach landing assault from Tarawa onward, right? In the Battle of Tarawa, where 3,000 plus Marines were annihilated or drowned or crushed in that because they had hit the outer reefs, got out of their boats, and they were in the lagoon, and they were just picked off by the Japanese pretty easily, and then they drowned too. And so they resurrected the NCDUs, they created the underwater demolition teams, and then these guys would swim in the middle of the night, lay 50 pounds of TNT, strap it to these coral reef bulkheads, and then blow them up so the landing craft could get to the main shores on Iwo Jima, Saipan, even Okinawa. And these guys were just, you want to talk about self-confidence. Like, it's difficult to even comprehend that, because they weren't going in with, belt-fed machine guns and all this. They went in with like those old circular dive masks, these 2x4s they had for fins, these old UDT shorts, a K-bar dive knife, and this haversack of 50 pounds of TNT. And that's what they went and did their mission with. And so,
that's more than confidence. That's like something above confidence, because that doesn't even make sense.
Dude, there are these stories of these guys, and if you ever get the opportunity, I highly recommend you visit the Navy SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida. I try and get up there once a year. This thing is absolutely one of the coolest museums, this little museum on a beach where our training originated back for the NCDUs in preparation for World War II. And, as I evaluated that, I was like, and they call these guys the frogmen of the Navy. And that's when I came up with the idea, well, maybe if I created some kind of training program or idea that I pulled from our storied past and our training, that made it user-friendly for kids, they would accept it. They tolerate, they want to get into it. And so I labeled it Froglogic. And I remember going to Joe going, hey man, what do you think I should, what should my logo be? And I want to use a frog and a tree frog because it changes camouflage. It can operate in the water. It can operate out of the water. It's got some cool, weapon systems with that crazy tongue and the sticky fingers and all, I just thought it was the coolest, the amphibian, right? It's one of the oldest creatures there is. And I go, what do you think? Like, what should I do? And the logic portion, I'm thinking about, I don't know. And he goes, you should put the frog on top of a brain and have, the frog choking out the brain. And Joe was, I think at the time, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So he's just a really tough, badass dude. And I'm like, this is for kids, right? And he's like, yeah, that's what makes it cool. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe not that, but maybe just a frog on top of the brain. And that's how the
you
logo,
need to do a rear naked choke on that brain. Just get it locked up.
Right. You see it bulging out. Like it's
tapping.
It's prefrontal. It's prefrontal cortex is like strained, right? And, veins popping out of that, and I was just like, all right. And so I went to, my lifelong buddy who I'd gone to high school with, probably the best artist I've ever met in my entire life. His name is Brian Colt. He's a graphic artist. You can check him out online. Just look up Brian Colt, graphic artist, who's literally done art for every piece of my companies throughout the years. I love him so much, and I thank him for helping me bring this to fruition, the idea, the image, right? Because an image speaks 1,000 words. And so did this, and I was like, all right, well, what do I do first? And
David Rutherford, my best friend. Welcome to the show.
Sean, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. What's up, team? I recently had the incredible honor of joining my best friend, Sean Ryan, on his show. And as a token of my appreciation for him and his audience, I want to do something special for you. For 30 years, I've been helping individuals and teams to discover how to utilize pain and suffering to propel their performance. From the World Series champions, the Boston Red Sox, to elite operators, top entrepreneurs, and business owners, I want to offer the first 3 foundational Froglogic courses that I've been developing for the past decade. Embrace Fear, Forging Self-Confidence, and Team Life. These courses come straight from the painful stories and lessons learned I talked about on Sean's podcast. And they also emerged from the thousands of people I've instructed. Normally, these courses are $200 each, but until September 15th, you can get all 3 for just $200. That's 3 courses for the price of 1. Please go to davidrutherford.com or click the link in the description to get the bundle. Thank you very much. Hoo-yah and Godspeed. So I went back and I evaluated, in the context of self-confidence, all the different parts throughout all of BUD/S, from pre-phase, first phase, second phase, third phase, all the things in my medical role, my medical roles, my performance role I had, all of my friends, what I saw in there. And I just started saying, all right, this lesson and this part and this lesson, what I learned here and all these things. And they kind of emerged into these concepts, and I had like 26 of these things. And, at the same time, I'm trying to figure out, well, how do you do this? How do you start essentially a motivational training company? So what do? You go online at the time that it was just getting big, and, you look up who? You look up Tony Robbins, and you look up Awaken the Giant Within, right? And I
bought go to Zig Ziglar.
Oh, you can go even further back to that, Dale Carnegie, right?
Yeah.
And you got Zig Ziglar, you got Stephen Covey, you got Les Brown, you've got Jim Rohn, the list is long, man. There's been some really amazing motivational speakers in history. Zig. Well, he's really good. He made it succinct, and you see these, and it's the 7 steps to be a great manager, or it's this. And so I was like, all right, 26 seems a bit much for kids, right? Let's try and figure out how to reduce. So what I did is I just looked across the scope of it, the span of it, and certain things that were similar, and then I drilled down. And I ultimately came up with these 8 missions in order to forge your self-confidence, right? And these 8 missions are: have a positive attitude. And they're kind of sequential, but you can pick each one, right? But the idea was that I would kind of utilize our mission training, packets, all the different things, and kind of set it up in kind of like a instructional guy, an IG, and kind of give it that militaristic feel, step by step. This is how you do it. This is what you follow. And these are the things that if you can learn these things and employ them in your life every day in some capacity, when you get punched in the face by that negative insurgency and knocked on your butt, these are the things that can help rehabilitate your self-confidence. Because
Can I just say too, real quick, is that one is that I think it's always bring this up, but it's important to keep in mind all these concepts like self-confidence. If you're a 16-year-old kid, 16-year-old dude, you haven't really had real challenges in your life. You're just confident by default, or at least I was. I'm invincible. Like I can literally do anything. And then it's not until you don't make the team, you get the bad grade, you get dumped, you have family issues. That's only then when you start getting it shaken. And that's the only time when having confidence matters. It's easy when nothing's going on, but it's hard when the only point is when you have everything going against you, or at least it feels that way. And I also wanted to say that it's interesting just from the start that you called them missions, and you say it's forging your self-confidence, as opposed to, let me just give you this information and then you'll be confident. You had to frame it as a mission that you have to forge and you have to do something. That's a key part of it, right?
Well, prior to that, as I was developing as an athlete, whether it was lacrosse or basketball or football, whatever I was passionate about, it was about, the mission was the winning and the losing. It was the competitiveness in the moment of the game, right? And so that's how I used to frame it. But when you go to Buds, man, it's like, no, the mission is to make it through the next 10 minutes, right? The mission is not like, I'm going to be a world-class expert as a frogman, tomorrow. It's more like, holy cow, I got to go do log PT right now after I've already run 4 miles. I've already swam 2 miles. I've already gotten an additional beat down of an additional 500 push-ups, and I had to get wet and sandy for inspection first thing in the morning. I'm exhausted. I'm starving. My knees are killing me. My back hurts. My feet are rotten from being wet for the last 4 straight days. And now I got to go do log PT. How am I going to make it through log PT?
Well, even if you were successful with it, even if you're good at something, wouldn't they just crank it up harder so you failed anyway?
Well, that's the objective.
There's no winning. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's the underlying secret, I believe, of Buds. Even when you're performing at your best, they're going to make you feel like you fail, because that's where it matters. Can you rebuild in the moment that matters, and you take a hit? How quickly can you fire and forget and move back into a ready position again? And that's the brilliance of the program, because you don't have a reference for that before that. And what I came out to believe was really that's the piece where you learn about yourself, is when you're, because like you said, day in and day out, when there's no pressure on you, I'm ultra confident. I can handle anything. And then, okay, well, show me. All right, well, I'll show you. And then you start doing it, and you start getting flustered, and then you start getting angry or frustrated or pain, and then you start feeling sorry for yourself. And that cascade can happen like that.
And you can't just tell that person to be confident. It takes practice. There's skills you have to practice. This isn't just a thing you learn and you're like, I'm good now.
No, that's why I tried to say you have to develop this system, not only to rehabilitate the collapse of your self-confidence, to get it back up to where you can just engage, but where you can then engage through failure. Oh, success, or a little piece of success. Oh, that keeps me going. And you build and you build and you build. And that's what I'm sure, if you're listening, that you kind of worry about some days. I know I worry about it even now at 53 years and all I've ever done, man. I'm constantly resetting myself in these mission templates, right? And checking myself. And my wife is checking me, and Jordy checks me. And, and that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm just trying to give you this thing, that this system, this idea, this process, this concept of forging self-confidence that I've really been thinking about and trying to put into practice, and as many different environments as you can imagine, most of them extreme environments. And what I've discovered as well is what works and how it works. And so let me just go through with these. Mission number 1 is have a positive attitude. Mission number 2 is to PT and live healthy. Mission number 3 is to motivate yourself and others. Mission number 4 is to earn respect. Mission number 5 is to set goals. Mission number 6 is to live with integrity. Mission number 7 is mentoring, to mentor or be mentored, to be mentee or mentor. And then finally, mission number 8 is to have fun in the process. All right. So let's just do a brief overview of these, go through these pretty quick. All right. So, mission number 1, have a positive attitude. I started the self-confidence piece because really the thing I saw every day was, you can be riding the top of the world one day at Buds, and then the next you're on the precipice of thinking you're the worst human being and you're ready to go ring that bell. And, I talked a little bit before in an episode before this about the importance of that bell, the metaphor of it in our lives. And so it's your choice. This is the greatest aspect about the human condition that I found, the most flexible, the greatest, the easiest thing to really do every day. And that is to just make the decision, am I going to be positive, negative, or neutral? And we do that every day. And then throughout each part of the day, am I going to be positive about what I eat for breakfast? Am I going to be positive about the crap I have to take at work or on my team? Or, am I going to be positive in my relationship when it doesn't go my way or I don't get what I want? Or am I going to be positive when I let myself down or I don't achieve a particular goal? Or am I going to let the negativity of that overwhelm me and be the controlling mechanism for what stalls my momentum or what dismantles my motivation to be self-confident? And it's a real simple question. And within every mission, again, just a reference, if you haven't heard me describe this before, there are always 4 sub-steps to all of these things, right? And the way it's designed is you take 1 month or 4 weeks to do these, the overall arching mission is the concept you focus on. And then I attach these subsets that you spend 1 week on, or you can do it in 1 week and introduce it on Monday. Then each step is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you finish the thing. So, and for instance, one of the most powerful steps in have a positive attitude is really to figure out how to anchor your heart to your mind. Right. And what I mean about that is there were so many days in Buds. And I always use this picture when I give this lecture of an individual kid in surf torture. And that's where you're forced to lay down arm in arm with your teammates, in the Pacific Ocean, just washing over top of you for extended periods of time. And that ocean can get as cold as, 60 degrees, 58, 9 degrees. At least in San Diego where we were, certainly up in Northern Cal, it's a lot colder. But so you're sitting there and you're being, whatever you're being punished for, you're in this predicament, being surf tortured. What happens? Your mind starts telling you, this ain't worth it. This sucks. I don't want to do this. I don't need to do this, because your body is in pain. And so your body starts over, your limbic system overrides that metacognition of that image of you being a SEAL jumping out of airplanes in 2 or 3 years down the road in training. And it negates all that, gets rid of it. And it says, well, right now I'm miserable and this sucks and I want it to end and I can't do this. And so that piece of you, that heartfelt desire, the ambition, the dream, if you will. And listen, I 100% believe dreams come true. I am a recipient of that on multiple ways, in multiple formats. I have participated with people to help them achieve their dreams in many different avenues and industry. And I've seen it just happen over and over and over and over again. It's real. But what happens when we're consumed with that pain and our confidence takes a blast, that peace in your heart that allows you to dream, it gets, that you override it with some kind of rational thought where you're trying to argue your way out of pain, right? And so, if you anchor your heart to your mind and keep that dream alive in those moments, man, that's the first step. And then, there's start every day cold, wet, and sandy, find a swim buddy. And then my favorite within this is no whining, right? And this is the thing that is absolutely beyond measure in my world is, if you whine, you're negative. Now a lot of people think they can get away with it, right, Jordy, by being sarcastic. But in any sarcastic comment, there's an underlying tone of negativity. It just is what it is, right?
Well, it doesn't help anything.
I used to believe that a bitchin' sailor was a happy sailor, right? And if I was complaining, I was going to be able to get through it, man. I'll never forget it. You asked my platoon mates in my second platoon when we were in Kuwait getting ready to go to combat. We're driving, these DPVs, and I was a guy that didn't even know how to change oil, right? And to give you an idea of the work that required, for every hour you drove in the desert was 8 hours of wrenching on these vehicles. And they were an old V-dub, souped up V-dub engine with, racing components and all that. And so I remember, my LPO, Larry, who I love you so much, Larry, deeply, would be like, Rut, go disassemble and rebuild this carburetor. And you'd hear me in the back, playing, Rage Against the Machine, blank you can't make me do what I won't do what you tell me. That I forget what song that is, but I would just blast that and I'd bitch and I'd moan, and I didn't realize the impact that whining has, not on my own psychology, but then on the people around me. So that became a big one. So these stories are not only based on my evaluation of training, but also my own personal responses in there too. So have a positive attitude, mission number one. So mission two.
I think about that like just the whining thing. I had to check myself all the time, because now with a wife and a kid, what's if we're in a stressful situation or we're dealing with something. I mean, our when our kid was born, I'll just say it was a little bit of a stressful experience, right? It was kind of a long, complicated situation. And man, what would have made a hard situation 100% worse is if she looked at me and I'm like, man, I'm really tired. I'm really stressed out. I don't really know what to do. This is hard. Like you did now. Can you imagine how much worse I could make it with my own words?
I can't imagine. I've seen people do it on a regular basis.
Yes. And I am stressed. I am tired. I am freaking out to some degree. And she looks at me and, going through this. And what do I say? Oh, you're good. I'm good. No, it's all good. We're fine. You're going to be fine.
That's right. That's right. And so that positively, it made the situation completely different.
And then I go to complain to Rut later on my own, like a responsible human being.
That's awesome. So, mission number 2 is PT and live healthy, right? And the question in this one is, are you happy with your body and your mind? And overwhelmingly, most people, unless you're, a triathlete, and usually they're even more mental about their performance ability than anybody else. But I mean, I'd say 99% of people on the planet are just not happy with that. And that's a normal place to be. And so, what do we do, right? I think one of the most fundamental aspects of self-confidence is when you are physically and mentally strong. And so that is the next step, right? Have a positive attitude of what you're going to face, but then you need to physically and mentally be strong. Strength is a must. I can't overemphasize, and I think I've told this story before. I know I've chatted with you about it, Jordy, but when my children, with my daughters, it used to be, I want my daughters to be intelligent, empathetic, beautiful human beings. And then as they grew older and I came to understand the world and as nasty as it is. And I used to believe a lot of that was just maintained or contained overseas, but now we know the extent of what it is in our own shores. John and I added in strong. We want our children to be strong. And so we have a premium on making sure they take care of their bodies, they eat right, they sleep right, and then also their mind, right? Really to enhance the strength of their mind.
I think the strength makes it real. It embodies 100%. It, because you can think about these missions, which are good, having confidence, taking on challenges, have a positive attitude, all great things, but there's something real about like, I don't know if I can do this last push-up, and you see yourself do the last push-up. It's real. It's in reality, and you saw it with your eyes. There's something about that you need.
Well, if you think about it, like if you think about human beings and the scope of our existence on the planet, the fundamental reason why we were able to survive or thrive is because we could move long distances as tribes with a herd of animals. We could endure the elements, right? We could figure out food intake and storing food or all of these things. And then we were able to build strong structures that could withstand things. And so that capacity, that physicality is fundamental in human experience of strength and our ability to survive and thrive. And so, step one in this is your body is your church. And so, I always give the reference, would you go into church with your McDonald's bag and pull out your cheeseburger and drinking your Coke while you're sitting there in church, right? And the metaphor is that, then why do you do it each and every day? And so, just be aware and figure out that if you active in the pursuit of strength physically and mentally and the things that make you strong, right? Great sleep routines, staying as far away from the toxicity of booze and drugs, right? A glass of wine, hanging out with your friends, all good every now and then. But if it overwhelms you, and I've had a lot of friends be destroyed by this. A lot of my friends are dead as a result of alcoholism or addiction. And I flirted with some of that myself as well. But these are the ideas that you really fixate and strengthen yourself, right? And the idea within that, and the last one, step 4 within this, is training never ends. There's never a time where you're done staying strong. And so that's the second part of this. All right. So mission 3, motivate yourself and others, right? And the question there is, how many motivational triggers do you have? Like, what are the specific elements of relationships, of activity, of PT, of dining, of hanging out? What are the specific moments where you feel motivated, right? And then once you're in there and you've got a good sense of yourself, right? How do you motivate others? Because I'll tell you what, this was a massive component of why I actually even made it through BUD/S, literally. I was at the moment after my second injury where the base training officer basically said, listen, dude, what's up with you? The doc had told me to drop me because of injuries. And the base training officer went over to the warrant officer who ran PTRR and was like, hey, what about this kid Rutherford? And the only reason I ultimately, one of the main reasons was because of this guy, Warrant Officer Rewerts, basically told the base training officer, he's a motivator. He really looks out for his teammates. And if he can make it through, he'll be a good frogman someday. And that little thing that I had done, because I had realized when I was in my greatest misery, when I was the most negative in my own head about my poor performance or what I was incapable of doing, what I had learned early on playing football and all the other sports, especially as a quarterback, I'd learned that it was my job to help the people around me to lift them up, to get a better performance. So I just employed that tactic in BUD/S, and it made me, as I started motivating others, made me forget about my own misery. And so that component of being able to motivate yourself and others, they're correlated there. It's a critical thing. And here's one of the things that, so many people do is people get annoyed by motivated people, right? You're like, dude, shut up. All right. Don't come over here with that false motivation. Well, guess what? Go ahead and be that guy or that girl, because it matters. It matters more than you think. And it even matters to the sour pusses, to the hard asses, to the negative Nancy's over there. It matters. It has an impact. And hell, step 4 is false motivation's better than no motivation at all. One of the great aspects of special operations is when, in the most miserable moment, someone, makes a joke about it. That dark humor, if you will, like true misery, when someone makes a statement that's just hilarious when everybody's miserable. So, surround yourself by those people. It really makes a huge thing. What's up, team? I've been writing for over 40 years. Finally, I've decided to bring to life a character that has been on my heart since my experiences of carrying a gun for a living. If you recently watched my episode with my best friend on his show, The Sean Ryan Show, You heard some of my real-world experiences that shaped this character and the story of the poet warrior. Can a poet's soul survive the crucible of war? The Poet Warrior follows Adam Ferguson, a reclusive teenage artist haunted by his father's early death, as he transforms into a battle-scarred Navy SEAL. Through the chaos of combat in the shadow of 9/11, Adam grapples with the raw truth of mortality. His journey is a searing odyssey of heartbreak, failure, and the relentless search for identity amidst the ruins of lost loved ones. Set against the turbulent dawn of the global war on terror, this is a story of a young man torn between his poetic heart and the hardened warrior he's become. If this sounds like a story that might pull you in, please visit my website at davidrutherford.com or click the link in the description below. And if you pre-order now, your signed copy will be delivered before the holidays. Thank you very much, and Godspeed. Mission 4, you got to earn respect, right? And to recognize that you're accountable for that mission every day. So many young people, I think, believe they just deserve respect because they're upright, have opposable thumbs, and a TikTok account, right? And so you literally are like, man, I deserve respect because I'm breathing. Well, I'm here to tell you that's complete BS. There's no way you deserve nobody owes you anything, period. End of sentence. Any way, shape, form, no matter what you've gone through, nobody owes you squat. And we learn that, right? And so every day, but what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get it to the point where, just like I'm doing with you right now, listening to me on this microphone, I'm trying to earn your respect. I'm trying to tell you and share with you and be honest with you and be open to you and to share with you so that that rapport initiates that trust, because that's what respect emerges, is built on this trust that we feel in connection with each other. That's fundamental to self-confidence, because when trust doesn't exist in your relationships, what happens? You don't feel self-confidence about anything. You just don't. It's just part of it. But when you're actively engaging, like we were every single day, I remember it was just every day I just wanted those instructors to look at me and be like, not even like, way to go, Rutherford, way to go, way to take that on the chin and come back. I didn't even want that. I just wanted them to look at me and not have that underlying layer of disgust on their face, that like, you worthless piece. My favorite aspect in training was, you'd ask an instructor like a pretty poignant question about moving forward or something, and they'd say, well, Rut, in the unlikely event that you do pass that evolution, you might get onto this, right? And not even like giving you that. And
if they told you were not terrible at something, that's like about the highest compliment you could ever receive in your life.
Well, you could even distill it down before that. If you do something and you don't get barked at, you don't get shouted at or pointed out.
No comment.
Just no comment is a win. I mean, that's how intense it is. And so, you are accountable for that. You, no one else. You're accountable to seek out the respect of the organization, the team, the relationships you're in, your children, your friends. That's on you. And you need to be able to do that every day. And so, a couple ideas within earn respect. Number one is the most important. Just don't lie. Now, I know that's hard because we live in a society where telling lies, we tell them pretty regularly, pretty easily, in order to protect the people we care most about. That's what most people lie. And listen, every human being lies, period. Every single person lies. It doesn't matter. A brilliant guy at UPenn, studied lying a long time. Everybody lies. And the place we lie the most is where? We lie to ourselves most. And what that ideation of respect actually is. Like, oh, everybody in my class thinks I'm squared away. Meanwhile, you get peer reviewed and like everybody thinks you suck. And so this illusion is destroyed. But then you double down like, no, they're just idiots. No, they're not. They're telling you something. You got to listen. You're not doing what you need to do. You're not doing the actions to get people's respect. And the other one is the willingness for you to do the work, right? Don't think you get to jump in line for one type of, because you have some plaque on the wall, right? Just because I'm a Navy SEAL doesn't mean you should carte blanche listen to what I have to say at all. Not even close. In fact, you should question what I'm telling you in a deep level, and then listen to what I have to say. And does it make sense? Do I have information to support it? Am I genuine in how I'm talking to you? And so that's a big thing too. Do the work and show the people to earn that respect. So that's it. All right. Mission number 5, you got to be able to set realistic goals for yourself, right? And this real question is, what's your purpose in life? Now, I know that's the massive question. I've talked about that extensively in the past. In the last show I did about Froglogic is, what is your purpose? And it's a very difficult thing to answer that question. Well, if you don't know what your purpose is, then set a goal on something, take aim at something, and then try and achieve that goal. And that, even if it's as small as, I want to be on time in every appointment I have for the next 30 days, no matter what. In fact, in BUD/S, the old saying is, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. Well, in my class, we reduced that all the way down. If you ain't 15 minutes early, you're late. And so that has been ingrained in me my entire existence. And think about that. You're meeting somebody important for the first time and you show up 7 minutes late, 20 minutes late, automatically you've lost their respect, right? And so the goal of that self-confidence, showing up on time with steadfast, that gives you that good platform to begin on, first impression. Right. And so within that, setting goals, really make sure you understand how to set a good goal, proper mission planning, and then stop being fixated on the goal. I'll never forget, it took me 6 months, I think, for me to let go of the fact of all I thought about was graduating. And the best advice I've ever been given, there are a lot of people, the typical advice is just think about the next time you eat chow, right? Think about that. Or just think about finishing the evolution. It got so intense for me that I reduced that all the way down as, just think about the order I was just giving and trying to perform that order as best as I can right now in the moment. And as long as I slowed it down to that capacity, man, I was able to not fixate on a space that I had no idea, all the steps that were included in that. I was able to distill the goal down and do an attainable goal right in front of me. And that's critical.
I heard a good analogy one time that was if you're driving in the middle of the night, you got to drive to the next state over. You can't see to the next state, but with your headlights, you can see, however many feet in front of you. And if you can just see that and follow the road where your headlights are, you actually do end up getting all the way there.
100%, but you got to know where you're going, right? And that's key. You have to have a plan of where you want to go. Don't just go drive, although there is some aspect of wandering, the wanderlust, and you go back to Jack Kerouac's On the Road.
That's different though.
Yeah, that's a different construct, right? That's when you're really trying to find yourself, and it can be this free roaming, and then, and then you can find some things. And then at the end of your goals, make sure you debrief what you did wrong, what you did right, learn, and then repeat. All right, number 5. So number 6, live with integrity. Out of all the virtues out there, this is one of the most important ones that I believe. And the question I ask people is, does honor guide your behavior? Right? When you do something, are you hope that there's a modicum of honor in what you're doing and why you're doing it? Or is it nefarious? Is it Machiavellian? Are you trying to, what's your MO? What's your modus operandi, right? What's your intention? Are you trying to manipulate, or are you genuinely trying to achieve something that's beneficial, not only for yourself, but for your team? And so, mission 6 is an interesting one. Know the difference between right and wrong. Never rest on the success of your last mission. And there's a couple other in there too. But living with integrity is one of the primary things we really learn, because if you don't have integrity, your teammate's not going to trust you. And if your teammate doesn't trust you, he's not going to want to go to war with you. And so think about that, how you have to live up to that. And integrity is a big one. It's and the photo I use is from Log PT. If your boat crew stinks and you get called out, it's usually because when you do the log PT, you've got this giant pole over your head. You've got your 7-man boat crew and you're doing push-ups with it. You're doing sit-ups. Well, if 2 or 3 guys aren't really touching that pole and the rest of the weight disperses on the other 4 guys, you feel that. And so it's like, hey man, get your damn hands under the pole. And what's happening? Like you're faking it. You're losing the integrity of the pain everybody else is feeling. And that's not cool. And what ultimately happens is, oh, your boat crew doesn't want to work together. Well, go get on that one over there. That's double the size. It's called old misery. So you go from a 300-pound thing to like a 400-pound pole. And you want to talk about misery? You want to talk about integrity in that one? Nobody escapes the pain of old misery. And that's what happens if you live without integrity. It's an inevitability. You will have to confront and face the pain of your lack of effort and integrity. All right.
Go back and listen to Coach Swider's episode. It's episode early 30s in our podcast. He outlines integrity in such a passionate and clear and inspirational way, more than I think I've ever heard anybody. Just what do you believe and what do you do? Talking about auditing yourself. I think that was a brilliant explanation if you want to listen to Coach Swider.
I think his encapsulation of it was the best almost I've ever heard.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do yourself a favor, re-listen to that episode. It is phenomenal. And I've seen it in action. I know men that played for him. I know a lot of men, and these men are men of integrity. They really are, right? The Justin of the world, the JDs, the all these guys, the Jonathans, the Dan, the Chris, all these men that played for that man. I mean, they are men of integrity, and I really, really admire these guys and Coach Swider too. All right, mission 7, mentoring. All right, when was the last time you asked for help, or when was the last time someone asked for you to help and you were able to give it? Mentoring is an essential component of self-confidence. Why? Because when we fail or we're in a jam, we need help. We need to understand what we're doing wrong. But if you don't have the courage to go ask for somebody who knows, then you're going to wander in the desert, right? And that's not what we want. And you want to be able to have somebody that you trust, that you respect, that has integrity, that can look at you and be like, hey, you're messing this up right now, and it ain't cool. Right? You're not what you think you are because you're doing this wrong. And then you're like, wow, thank you for that. Will you tell me what I should do? And then the other beautiful aspect of this, if you go out and have mentors, and everybody should have 3 or 4 mentors in their life, everybody. And these are real people dedicated to helping you get through life. Once you get to that place where you think you're like, all right, I think I got this. And I do this with all the young men that I mentor, and I've mentored a bunch, is I say to them, the one thing that you're going to owe me at some point in your life, an opportunity is going to come where you're going to have to mentor someone else. You're going to have to lean in and teach them. And it can't be your own children. It has to be God's going to put somebody in front of your face, and you need to mentor them. And they all respond amazing with that. Because the biggest thing in mentoring, step 4, is you got to share your life with people, right? Or what else is it for? Like you're learning all these incredible things. You got to share that. And I remember when I would have an instructor like lean into me specifically and be like, hey, Rut, you need to learn this because I learned this. And you're like, good God, man, thank you. That's the feeling I love to feel, right? It was incredible. All right. Mission 8, final mission, is to have fun. And the question I ask is, when was the last time you peed your pants from laughing so hard? Jordy, when was the last time you let a little couple drops fall out because you're laughing so hard, dude?
Laughing that hard? Oh man.
All right, if it's not pee your pants, what's the last time you snorted or you cackled you bent over, you had a stitch in your side? When was the last time?
It was probably over a year ago, honestly, which is sad. But I remember when it was just being super silly and dumb with my wife. We just got laughing about something, and that's what we do. But it was uncontrollable laughter. And it's a rare thing, but it's one of the best things.
I'm glad you just said it. It's a rare thing. If you're listening right now, think to yourself, when was the last time that you had that moment where laughter consumed you because the joy of the moment you were existing in? You want to talk about self-confidence. when you can be in that state and you can find humor or the interpretation of your existence or the assessment of your life or the reactivity of a relationship or a statement or a funny, man, that's the place. Like, that's the moment. Now, those moments are few and far between, obviously. And so it's critical to think about it intentionally. I want to have fun in this pursuit of this ambition. And granted, you're like, well, Rut, what if it's really painful? I mean, there were moments in buds where you must have been miserable. Yeah, but those moments I'll never forget. I had guys like Bing would say something hilarious, man, in Hell Week, and I'd just look over and I'd just start cracking up in the midst of my misery, and I'd be like, whoa, and Wojo and Adam and Jeff and all these amazing people, Mark and I'm, they would say things, and they would just, that laughter would just cause an elation that would lift you above the misery and reset that self-confidence to drive forward.
Probably said things you can't say on a podcast.
Oh, bro, that's why I'm going to go on my friend Ryan's podcast, Liberty Risk, here in the next few weeks, and I'll say a bunch of those stories there. So pay attention to the Liberty Risk podcast, right? So within the step one, obviously, have fun, laugh it off. All right. If you are miserable, something's going wrong, figure out how to laugh it off. All right. We do that. I think special operations guys do that better than almost anybody on the planet. Why? Because it's going to suck, right? No matter what, you got to embrace the suck. And the easiest way to do is just laugh it off. Oh, we just got in trouble. We got to go put on a 65-pound ruck and ruck for 20 clicks in the middle of the desert. Well, hell, this is awesome, isn't it? And you laugh it off, right? And the other one is really figure out how to love yourself and to love your teammates, right? There's no greater sensation of fun, joy, just that feeling you feel when you really truly love yourself and you love your team. If you're struggling with that, find somebody who does love themselves, right? For me, my core, I go to Christ. I know Christ loves me no matter where I am, what I'm going through, what is it? That's the gift. That's the gift of his sacrifice. That's the gift of the word to me. I know my wife loves me. Sometimes she gets angry and a little pissed off at me, but I know she loves me. I know my children love me, my friends, my family members, I know that love is real. And so when you have that, when you're facing really profound, insurmountable challenges, man, that love is what drives you. It's what keeps your self-confidence intact. And I look at my teammates throughout my experience and friends of theirs and people we've lost. You ask them, why did they do that? Or why did they sacrifice for you? And the only answer people give is because they love me. And today, by the way, it's my brother's birthday and just want to tell him I love you so much, man. And I just love that you're my brother, my actual brother, my blood brother. You can find him on Instagram at Mr. Rutherford. And I think about that. And yesterday was the anniversary of Mark Lee's death. And I watched all his close teammates from, Task Force Bruiser post these beautiful tributes to him. And you could tell there was this profound love in them. They missed him. They remembered, they were able to invoke those memories of this really amazing human being. And I've had the opportunity to meet Mama Lee, Mark, America's Mighty Warriors. She has a great foundation. Check that out. Mama Lee, Mighty Warriors, donate to it. They do amazing work. I've had a lot of friends utilize them. Wonderful. But you can see these people truly love him. And that's something that comes out of, that's that idea of having fun, and having fun is incorporated in the idea of love. So, these are these 8 missions. You can find these on our website at davidrutherford.com. Where there's a special going on right now. Go check that out. And I just, self-confidence is this fragile thing. And we need to have a system in place that really can help us rebuild it. The system that, when you feel like, the sky is falling in, the tsunami is going to hit you, whatever metaphor it is, or nobody loves you, you have to have a system that you can rehabilitate that self-confidence. Because without that self-confidence, just like I go back to that moment with those children, and I see them, and you're in Afghanistan, and you got to realize that, Afghanistan is about as impoverished as you get. And you hear the stories about, little girls trying to go to school and being burned, or and little boys being, going on in the culture, the eye for an eye culture that exists. And you're like, how are these young people going to experience life at a higher degree? How are all the young people in America or older people that are experiencing profound mental health challenges, how are they going to experience life as we deserve it to be experienced, which is through a perception of a confident perspective where we can figure out what our purpose and meaning in life is. And that's by figuring out how to keep that self-confidence intact on whatever battlefield that you face every single day. Again, Jordy and I feel so blessed that you listen to us, that you pay attention to the show, that you're paying attention to what we're doing and how we're trying to help. And I just, if this message hits you and you feel good and it makes a difference, just give us a shot. Head over to davidrutherford.com and check out the course of Forging Self-Confidence. We also have Embrace Fear in Living the Team Life. But I put all this together for you because that's what my mission in life is. That's what my purpose is to try and take these experiences and what I've learned and to help other people. Thank you so much. God bless you.